In this video, I've prepared for you 3 key concepts that every chess beginner needs to know wherever you are. If you're 1000, 700, 800, 500, you need to know about these key concepts. They are called opening principles. So let me first of all tell you why they are very important, and also I've prepared for you a bonus at the end of this video. So make sure you watch until the end. It's very important for beginners. And also the bonus is gonna be about how you're gonna solve a lot of issues that you have as a beginner. So, why opening principles are so important? In chess, most players who are at the 700, 1000 and below this ELO level, they just try. You have probably seen this, or this is you. This has been definitely me. They try to focus on tactics that are super advanced. They don't even matter for them. They try to, you've seen this, kind of like outlearn in the sense that they're trying to learn things that are super advanced, and they just neglect what really matters here, which are the principles, that are the basics of the game. So, how about this? We are going to right now focus on the basics of the game, the opening, that is, and then you could learn all these other things, okay? Because all these things are very advanced, they don't matter right now. You need to focus on the principles and the basics. The more advanced stuff can wait. This one should be first. Most players, they just get stuck because they neglect this and they try to learn all this advanced other stuff. So let's start and learn the basics. So in chess, for an example, there's a very, very important rule that we have as an opening principle, which is never bring your queen too early. Of course, sometimes there are exceptions, but usually you never want to bring your queen into the game very early. Let's say, for example, we do e4. Let's say, for example, I do e4 and you do as black e5. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my queen here on g4. What you as black want to do is you wanna continuously, without an end, try to threaten my queen to move away. Okay? Now let's say that I move my queen here. Okay? To g5, which is an even worse move. Okay? It's another mistake. Then of course I'm threatening your pawn. You're gonna want to defend this. This time that I've spent, you have just spent moving my queen from here to there, which is still moves for a piece, which is very bad at the openings. You have now set up yourself with 2 pieces aiming at the center. So a very important rule that you can just now adopt is never really to bring your queen into the game in the opening. Afterwards, or in some exceptions, yes, you need, but most of the cases you don't want to. Let's say, for example, instead of queen to g5, I've done, after this, queen to e2. Okay, queen to e2. This is this exact same thing. Once again, you can just prepare another piece, and I've just lost a huge amount of time. So, one of the key things you need to know is never bring your queen too early, and with exceptions, of course, never try to move your piece more than once or more than actually necessary. Okay? Now let's move to the next principle. So the second key and very, very important principle that we have in the opening is that you, whichever side you are, you want to focus on these 4 squares, or these ones that I've just pointed out in red. They are the center of the board. The more control that you have over them, the easier time that you're gonna have whenever you play. Most players, if they do, for an example, and this happens as a beginner sometimes, they do a stupid move like this, or something like this. You just want to point, let's say, for example, I do some weird move like this. You want to immediately move your pawn to e5. Straight up. Okay? And the reason is, of course, you wanna again put as much pressure on these squares. These ones too. These ones too. I'm gonna point them in a different color. This one's the ones in orange too, but they're not as important. These red ones are the most important in the board. As white, you point only on two squares, one which is not even important, and as black, you are gonna point on this one, and you could potentially also bring another pawn, and it's a better opening down the line. Let me show you an example. Let's say for an example that I'm gonna play as black and you're gonna play as white, okay? And so as white, again, you wanna move your pawn immediately to e4, okay? Trying to take over the center. Now, let's assume that I'm gonna do a move which is quite weird, pawn to d6, okay? What you wanna do again is you wanna move your pawn to d4, again trying to, this is actually called the Pirc defense, it's a legitimate opening, but you wanna, again, you're gonna play by basic principles. You wanna again move your pieces here and to try and attack these ones, okay? And you could see slowly as you play, the more that your opponents just neglect the center, the easier time you have playing and moving around. Let me show you now an example. Let's say that, for example, me as black, I'm moving my pawn here to g6. Okay, you again are going to continuously try to improve your control over the center. You're going to move your knight here, putting pieces here, developing them, which is very important. We're going to touch on this more soon. I'm going to do this, and now we're going to do this. You're going to have quite an easier time. You're having a small advantage against me as black if you do this. Now, not a big advantage, but it is quite important as white that you're going to do this. Let's now continue to the next principle. So now the third key principle that you want to have is, we have just talked about how you want to take your pawns and take over the center and put as much control as possible there. Now we're going to talk about how you want to specifically develop your pieces, specifically the knights, okay, the knights and the bishops. This is very important in chess. Let's say that I'm gonna do a move like pawn to e4, okay, a regular opening. But then I'm gonna do a weird move which doesn't make sense whatsoever. Knight to a3. Good rule of thumb as a beginner, never put your knights here. There's a saying that knights on the side of the board are a shame for the eyes, and it's absolutely true. Let's say now that you as black are gonna play very principled, and you're gonna develop your pieces, okay? And you're gonna do a move like this. And if some of you might ask, should I take? No, absolutely not. The reason is, of course, this knight is very bad. This bishop, you still don't know anything. This bishop, okay, this one, you still don't know anything about it. You don't know where you want to take it. So no, don't capture. So let's say now as black, you're playing very principled. You're developing your pieces. You're doing a move like this, okay? Let's say now that me as white, well, now I'm gonna only place a reasonable move, which is pawn to d3, defending, because you cannot really do anything. This knight is here now. I mean, you can move it back here and here, but this is a huge loss of time. So you can move your pawn here. Now, again, as black, you're gonna play very principled, very well. You're gonna do a move like a bishop to c5. Okay, bishop to c5, developing a bishop. And again, me as black, I'm gonna play very regular now. You're how do you say this? If me as white now I'm gonna play regular, just principle, trying to put pieces and as much pressure as possible on the center, you're gonna have a lot of an easier time, because this piece basically barely even exists. So remember this, whenever you play a game and you see this, just know that this is an first and foremost a huge mistake, and never do these sort of things. Never put your bishops, let's say here, unless there is a exception that you can actually clearly see why to do this. Never put your knights on the sides of the board. Play trying with them to aim at the center, okay? With here, if let's say the knight was here, you would want to aim at the center again, here. This is something which will be more principled then, okay? If we go back, and let's say now I'm doing, instead of this knight to b3, I'm doing something like knight to f3. You're gonna move your knight here, here, and then here. This is something which is equal, okay? I don't have the advantage, you don't have the advantage, because both of us are playing very principled. That knight, let's say you're playing knight here, or something which is absolutely pointless, I'm gonna have the advantage. So now, let's review this. So the first thing that we had on this video is never bring your queen too early into the game. The second thing is you wanna take over the center, or have at least as much control as possible, because it's not always possible to just take over the center at its entirety. And the third thing is develop your pieces to places that are fit. So knights, for example, they love being here. Bishops, sometimes you can place them, it depends more on the position. However, you can place them here, there, but yeah, this depends more on the situation. This video is specifically about the principles. And so now I've said that I've prepared for you a little bonus. Let me show you this one. So, in chess, you've probably felt this, like there is a specific move that you do whilst you're playing, which just is a huge blunder, and basically one move that ruins the entire game. We're gonna learn right now how to prevent such things. It's very, very simple actually. So let me show you this game, okay? Pawn to e4, pawn to c6. This, I know that I've said move your pawns to take over the center, but this is specifically an opening which is called the Caro-Kann. White is gonna put his pawn here, and you're gonna then move your pawn here. The idea is like white has a little bit of a control in the center, and you're gonna try to challenge it as much as you can. So again, pawn to knight first of all to c3, pawn to d5, and then you're moving your pawn to d3. Okay. Now, what do you do? So what happens then is you put your pawn on e5. So far, a regular opening. Okay. Not anything too special. Let's continue a little bit further. Okay. And then this happens. This blunder. You move your pawn here, which by the way, this is not the best move. I could do other things that are very, very useful. This is just a waste of a move. And then again, black does the same. So now the blunder that we're gonna talk about is knight to e5. I wanted to take a moment and to see a fork on the board that's gonna happen in this position. So, if I had a chance to look at this, the fork that is going to unfold is queen to a5. Excuse me. Queen to a5. Okay? I'm gonna check the king and you're gonna aim at the knight. Now, I've said previously, don't bring your queen too early. Yes. However, this is an exception. You can bring your queen into the game if you see a clear reason to why you should do this, like this, where it's easy to see that you're gonna win material. Okay? Now, of course, you're trying to defend this with bishop to d2, and then black captures, and now he's just up material. He's up a piece to be exact, and this is a big problem. Okay, that you need to prevent. So, how do you actually come to prevent this? The way that you prevent this is you ask yourself a few questions before every move that you make in chess. You need to also, before I'm telling you the questions you need to ask yourself, you need to think in checks, captures, and threats. You need to think in these three throughout the entire game, from the beginning to the end. Okay? And then you will prevent yourself from doing blunders that are very, very large, like this, where now losing a piece affects your entire game and essentially makes you lose, actually. So the questions are, is there anything that could be captured if I do a specific move? Is there anything that could be under threat? Could they check my king? And is the king safe? So actually 4, not 3. And so if you were to ask yourself this, is there anything under threat? If I do, let's say, knight to e5, and you would have took a few moments to guess, you'd have actually found out that the king can be, how do you say this, checked by the queen. Okay? And then you would have just said, okay, I'm gonna try to do something else than knight to e5. So you see, it's very, very simple, but you need to do this forever when you play chess. I'm an intermediate player, and this happens to me also sometimes, where I just neglect to do this, and then I end up losing, actually. We've covered quite a bit in this video, so you may need to watch it again. You may need to exercise right after this on chess. So just to sum up, we have talked about why you need to take over the center, or put as much pressure as possible on the center. We talked about never bringing your queen too early into the game, and we talked about how to develop pieces. We've talked about, why you need to develop them, and also on how to prevent big blunders from happening to you in chess. If you have any questions in regards to things that I've talked about, in things like the opening, anything, let me know. I will do my best to answer all of your questions, and thank you for watching. If you have learned something, then give a subscribe and a like, and I will see you in the next time. Bye bye.